Welcome to the MegaTeam Mastermind podcast, the ultimate resource for real estate team leaders who want to take back their time, scale their profit, and love their business again. I'm your host, John Tiller. For almost 25 years, I've been building real estate teams with a focus on making an impact and leaving a legacy. And I want to help you to do the same. In each episode, we have dynamic conversations with industry powerhouses, mega team leaders, coaches, and other thought leaders who are shaping the future of real estate teams. You'll discover the secrets to effective leadership and team building so that you can leverage your business to make an impact and to leave a legacy, all without sacrificing your family. This podcast is brought to you by MegaTeamMentor.com, where you can get a free detailed assessment of your real estate team's health, including a free customized scorecard that will quickly and objectively diagnose the strengths and weaknesses of your real estate team business. That's MegaTeamMentor.com for your free real estate team health assessment. Now, let's get started on the journey of growth, impact, and legacy building with today's episode. Welcome to the MegaTeam Mastermind podcast, where we interview successful real estate megateam leaders who will inspire you by sharing real-world stories of success and failure, building profitable real estate teams that make an impact and leave a legacy. I'm your host, John Tiller, and today we have got a couple of rock stars joining us from Ontario, Canada. This is Peter and Justine Wolcott. They are the children and operators in the business that their parents, Drew and Jane Woolcott, founded in the 1990s. The Woolcott team has sold over that period of time over 7,000 homes for $3 billion in sales volume and still growing at a rate of about 500 sales a year with about 30 agents on their team. Peter and Justine, so glad to have you here today. How are you?
We're doing great. Thanks for having us on, John.
Yes,
Privilege.
thank you so much.
Hey, awesome. Really great to see you. So tell us a little bit about, I gave you like the About Us kind of headline, but tell me a little bit about where you've come from in the business, a little bit about growing up in a real estate household, and what caused you to want to get into the business where you are now.
I think Justine's answer is a little more exciting, so I'll let you go first.
Well, we kind of came at it at different ways. So where we're from is a small town outside of Toronto, and the way the team started to grow is my parents really farmed it starting out, and it's become a really interesting mecca for teams that have grown here. Within about a half-hour drive, there's 4 or 5 massive mega teams, which is unlike anything in North America, I think. And we both came in at different ways. I didn't plan on working in real estate. I actually have a marketing background, worked in PR and digital advertising for a number of years. I planned on working here temporarily 7 years ago. So obviously that worked out really well. I did have my license before I started working here. And Peter joined in younger than I was after spending some soul searching out in the mountains. So I'll tell that a little bit.
Well, I went from high school to gap year after gap year to train axle factory to real estate. And yeah, that's been the path, straight heavy into real estate. That's been in my blood.
Yeah.
No way to avoid it.
And Peter started out as an agent on the team, as a buyer's agent. I've worked primarily in operations the whole time. Peter recently switched over to our sales manager about 3 years ago and has taken the lead on that side of things since then.
Awesome. That's super exciting. Tell me about that mountaintop experience a little more, Peter.
The mountaintop experience. Well, I worked as a lifty out in Banff for a while, which was a lot of fun.
Wow.
Yeah, it was honestly a dream job out there. I would do it again if I could.
Wow.
But you only get to do it a few months out of the year, and then you're back to reality.
Now, did that have any, in that role, was that kind of where you had any clarity in, hey, listen, I'd really love to do this for the rest of my life, or did it give you clarity about coming to real estate?
Yeah, that's a great question. Towards the end of it, and with all the other things I've done sort of in between that and real estate, it was always my plan. I just wanted to get into a real career and have a real business and make real money, frankly.
I love it. So tell me about what were the pros and cons, and being a little bit raw, a little bit honest, the pros and cons about. I know there's got to be a lot of pros about joining with your parents, but I also know there's got to be some cons. We have a lot of people who have parents in real estate who join their teams and eventually kind of take on the leadership mantle of that team. And then we have some people who they love their parents, they learned a lot, respect a lot from their parents, but they're like, man, we could not work together. And they just start their own team instead with kind of encouragement from their parents most of the time, sometimes not. Tell me about how you guys both each came to that decision. What were the pros and cons in that decision-making process for you?
So the pros for sure, when I was an agent, you had somebody who's been in the business at the kind of the top of the game for 25 plus years that you got on speed dial at any one time. So you've learned the best ways to do literally every single thing. So something that might take somebody 15 years to learn, you're going to learn that in a year. And there's also no excuse, meaning you can't really hide away like you might be able to if the team leader isn't related to you. Plus, I was living with them when I started. So your car was at the office before theirs was, and you didn't leave until theirs left. So you can't shy away from a really good work ethic. There are so many more pros to that. Plus, you've also developed a really deep relationship with your family working with them, for sure. I certainly wouldn't have spent nearly enough time with my mom and dad and with my sister if it wasn't for the business. I'd probably be a bit of a stranger, just the way I operate.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, hard to think of a con. Do you have one?
Well, I think for me, the pro was similar but in a different vein. Like, again, I kind of fought against working with the family for a long time because I felt I had to forge my own path, right? It seemed very easy to slide into graduating from university and then just going straight into it. So I railed against it for a number of years. And even when I started with them, there's always like the impression of people thinking that you're taking the easy way of working with your family business. But I mean, I don't think there's many people that work more hours than I do. I feel like with the business, we're on all the time. One of the pros here is like my father, I have such a deep respect for his business acumen. He's so bright and he's able to come up with these brilliant ideas. And I feel so lucky to work alongside him. And kind of speaking to Peter's point, like I probably wouldn't know Peter as well if we didn't work. Our offices are literally beside each other. We can hear everything that goes on in them. And Peter's wife also works with us, which is lovely. Like we get to spend all this time together. Cons are, for me, it was coming back and moving back to my family neighborhood. Like I lived in Toronto for a long time. I've finally relinquished that I needed to be in the area, which is a very challenging decision because it felt like a bit of an identity loss moving back to the area. Though in hindsight, like I'm very happy I made that decision.
Good for you. Now, you talked about forging your own path and how that can be a challenge. What have you done has that been an issue as you've joined the team? And what have you proactively done to make sure that, hey, this is Justine's career, that this isn't just me carrying on the family mantle?
That's a great question. I think one piece that's been invaluable to me, kind of separating myself out, is that I did have a separate career that is kind of can run parallel to real estate. Again, like I come from a PR, marketing, digital advertising space, and that's what I was originally started to do when I worked here. We worked on a rebrand out at the gate that I led. We worked on integrating digital marketing. That was 7 or 8 years ago. That was a huge piece when we started doing digital ads. And because we were able to leverage these unique pieces to the business from things that I learned from consumer brands, like we're doing Facebook and Instagram ads for Benjamin Moore and Tim Hortons, which is a coffee company here. Yeah. And when I moved over to real estate, I was able to leverage those lessons and kind of create this unique piece of myself in the company and provide that value, not just coming in as like the owner's daughter.
Mm-hmm. What would you say again, I just want to go down this path a little ways, because I think we also have people we talked about this before we started, who are a little bit closer to my age, who have kids or may have kids that may be interested, and they're a little bit fearful. They don't want to do it wrong because, of course, the family relationship comes first. What would you say to people that are like your mom and dad who are thinking about bringing their kids into the business? What kind of advice would you give them about that?
There can't be any sort of favoritism or appearance of favoritism. There can't be any sort of special lead that you give. There can't be any sort of leg up or appearance of a leg up. In fact, the way that my parents have operated, it's had to be the total opposite, meaning you're not getting what these other guys are getting in some cases, and you've got to fight a little harder, and you earn it. And that's a big thing. As soon as there's that appearance, there's no integrity, there's no belief in the system, and you're going to have a much higher hill to climb.
Yeah. And Peter at our old office had the worst office in the entire space. It was in a little
Tiny little
cubby
closet
that he couldn't stand up and couldn't be sitting down and open the door at the same time, and there was no window. I gave up an office to sit in between two filing cabinets. We were so, it's so important that appearance of neutrality is there, and not appearance, that the neutrality is there. One thing I would also say, and this has come up when I've talked to some agents in our areas, when they are talking about having their kids get involved in the business, they ask, like, what should I be doing to get them involved? My number one piece of advice is don't make them feel forced into it. Because I think that if a parent really wishes it and somebody joins for the wrong reasons, it can create that familial issues. If I had been asked to work here when I was in my early 20s, I would have fought against it or felt resentment, I think, had I started that young. And we have a younger sister that's in her early 20s, and we're like, she may join us, but it's not a forced thing. If she comes to it, it'll be her own decision.
And that is big credit to you guys for recognizing those things. I think those are things that are easy to say. You have lived them out, and clearly your parents had the wisdom to also feel that way to start with. So I love that. No favoritism. Don't force them into it. That's really good. Peter, I want to talk a little bit about you becoming sales manager. So as sales manager, the agents report to you. And you said that's been about 3 years now. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, 3 going on 4.
Yeah. And so obviously you didn't come in as the sales manager. You were there for a few years ahead of time. So tell me about what that looks like and how that transition was there, that whole avoid the appearance of favoritism. Did that happen? Or did people, was there a runway for them to know that, hey, this is the plan? Were they surprised when you were named sales manager? And how have they responded since then?
So I'll paint the picture a little bit. So it happened a few years ago. I was a buyer's agent. There was a sales manager here that actually kind of announced his retirement way ahead of his actual retiring. So my parents sat me down and said, is this something that you want to do? I was already playing a leadership role in certain scenarios, meaning like I was leading scripting. I would always try to find the best way to do an offer and share that with the group. So I was doing that sort of a thing. I'd want to lead the buyer agent meeting or listings meeting and stuff like that. I don't think that it came as much of a surprise, but it happened like overnight. Switch just flipped. Now you're not the agent anymore. You're the sales manager. So that was pretty confusing, I guess is the best way to put it, because I came in the office and a few people came up and congratulated me. And I'm thinking, what are you congratulating me for? I got a fucking long way to go here. I got to figure out how to do this. And there's no manual, to be honest with you. The systems weren't at the point that they are right now. So we had to implement a whole bunch of stuff, and we're continually doing it. And I'll be honest with you, I was not good at it at the start. Meaning I didn't know how to create systems and implement them and hold standards. So it was a big learning curve, but I worked with the existing sales manager to sort of build that skill set. So in a way, I got to ease into it a little bit. But I'll tell you the mistake that I made, which was, if anybody's in the same position that I'm ever in, do not be everybody's little helper. That's what I thought was the role and how I would build street cred with the agents, if you will. It's the opposite. You've got to find a way, and there's no easy answer to this, a way to lead people. And sometimes that involves helping, but that's not the sole role. And you'll turn into everybody's, I hate to say it, bottom bitch at the end of the day. I don't think I went that low, but I could see that path.
Well, maybe one of the hardest things for leaders, right, is to realize that we've got to spend 80% of our time with the top 20%, but it's the bottom 80% or the 80% that want the most of our time that is not a return on that, right? And that's so not being everyone's helper, no creating systems. There wasn't a manual, there weren't systems. And tell me about like the top 1 or 2 things that move the needle, and also share with me the production level that the team was at before, of course, understanding that 2021 was rough on everybody into 2022 and 23. 2021 was actually pretty great for everybody. It was
Yeah, amazing.
wasn't, yeah. And so, but understanding that there were market shifts, but tell me about where you feel like you led the team in the last 3 years, and tell me what the top one or two things were that moved the needle there.
Yeah, so 2021 was a fantastic, it was the best year that we had ever had. But we were running this like Navy SEAL type team where we had fewer really, really good agents. I want to say, I can't remember the exact number. We were maybe just under 20 agents. Sounds right. But with that team, we were doing close to, if not over 500 transactions. But the tail was wagging the dog in a lot of cases, meaning we didn't have a lot, we couldn't implement standards. We had to keel over and bend over in certain situations to keep people happy. It wasn't a scalable way to operate. Anyway, 2022, if I'm being honest, was abysmal. It was a really tough year. For the first few months were okay, but we ended up like in the high 300s towards the end of the year, and then not much better in 2023. Now we're on track to hit our goal for 2024, and I'll tell you why that is. It's because of standards. It's because of recruiting, number one. That's the obvious big one. You know, we had kind of wavered on it. Our coach was always talking about recruit, and we knew, yeah, just like everybody does with the coach. And we did the math every single year. December would roll around. Okay, we need X number of agents in order to hit X goal. And the math was very clear, but we never really took all the groundwork that was important in order to have that come to fruition. So we've taken that extremely seriously, really since November of last year, meaning like an hour of recruiting calls every single day. We're really heavy on Indeed. There are other recruiting sources, but the main one is the calls, because then you get really good. And we have a minimum of 5 recruiting interviews that we want to set in a week. But anyways, having people lined up at the door, now that we've got this machine going out, we're sending emails, people know that we're hiring people. Everybody knows, I hope, in our marketplace that we're hiring people. We've got a steady flow of people that want to come and work here. So we're not afraid. If we need to increase the standards to help people's production, we're going to put that in place because we know it's the best thing for our agents, and we're always trying to help them get to higher and higher conversion. The second thing is the standards that we're able to implement, which is having everybody on at least some sort of base level of calling. For us, it's 15 conversations and follow-up us every single week. That's the most important standard that we have, and you can't take leads unless you're having some level of conversation in the database. That's been a game changer, and having people focus on something daily has been absolutely huge.
And I just want to jump in there because I think it's really important. 2022, when we started implementing standards and having a bit more accountability, we lost a number of those, Navy SEALs that Peter talked about. And at the time, it was devastating. We've recovered and then some, but we really needed, in hindsight, that to happen so we could grow. It's kind of like the business was able to move on to the next phase because there were people that and loved them dearly. They were people that were used to a certain way of working, and that method, as Peter mentioned, isn't scalable. So that all happened in 2022. It was a big change year.
Yeah, we had a few people that were doing 30, 40, close to 50 transactions a year. Leave us, and now we're scrambling. Holy smokes, we never really exhausted real energy on recruiting. We got to regroup here and figure this whole system out, because it's not scalable, nor did we even really want to just spend the time on a few key people to get them into high transactions.
That's a big chunk, and I think a lot of teams deal with what you just said, where you have this Navy SEAL mentality, and it feels really good when you do. You have tight relationships, but Justine, you said it was devastating. I think it's devastating for 2 reasons, right? One is that you had relationships, like these people built their careers with you, and so it's emotionally devastating. And at the same time, that is a 20, 30, 40, 50 transactions, a large percentage of the whole. So it's also devastating to the business. And John Maxwell, a leadership expert, says that you don't end with the people that you start with. And Justine, that was something that you were saying, and Peter, you were saying that it just isn't scalable if we stay there. So you guys moved into this new place and experienced this was really good by putting these standards in place and making sure that you had a recruiting pipeline that was full. That makes a lot of sense. Talk to me a little bit about standards. I think all team leaders struggle with minimum expectations. In other words, you can't work here anymore if you don't do A, B, or C, right? versus this is what we want you to do. And I talk to team leaders all the time who are banging their heads against the wall because they're like, I tell them to get on the phone. I tell them 15 conversations in FUB. That would be great. Like in Follow Up Boss, that would be great per week, which is like bare minimum, right? That's for experienced agents. If you're a new agent, you're probably talking 25, 35 that you really need to be having conversations per week. So what is that? Tell me about how you set your standards and how you enforce your standards and what that looks like from your team. Because one end of the scale is that you're just like this militant jerk who says, this is what you got to do and you got to do it every day. And I don't care, just make your numbers. And then the other side is that I don't care at all. I don't love you enough to hold you accountable to your standards. So tell me what that looks like for you guys.
They're set and met by, I would say, the same mechanism, which you have to put your money where your mouth is. And that's certainly one of the mistakes that I learned early on. You can't sit up on your high horse and just tell people what to do unless you're doing it yourself. Really, I don't see many models where somebody gets completely out of doing these tough activities. So what I've been doing for the past 8 to 10 months on the advice of the coach is I'm in the boardroom with the agents calling every single morning, 10 to 11, just doing an open calling session where they can come in. So when I say they were set and met by the same mechanism, I figured out by calling in that room, if you have 15 conversations with people either in the ponds or in your own database or with new leads, you're going to generate X amount of appointments and you're going to have X amount of transactions. So it wasn't just an idea that I threw at them. Hey, I think you should do this. So do it, damn well do it. It was, I know that this is what it takes to get you to income. I'm not taking your income as a game. Like your future is very important to me, so much so. I have to put a standard here because I know that this is the number one thing that works. And if you do this, you can add on additional things, but at least if this is getting done, you will have transactions and you will build a business and you keep those standards in place. By not wavering from them, giving exceptions. We do have exceptions for people that are at a certain income level, but I don't really like having those in place because they can often screw things up, meaning, the agent that hits that minimum ends up falling short on their calls and then their business goes up and down and up and down.
Right. They won't stay there.
It's not consistent.
It's not like it's never an earned right to say, I'm not calling this week, right?
But in order to keep those standards, you have to always be proving that it works. Meaning I've got to go into that boardroom and I'm sending out like the agents that are in that boardroom. I've turned myself into an ISA in a sense, because if I dig up a listing appointment, it goes to the agent in that room. If I dig up a buyer showing, it goes to one of the agents in that room. And then we send out a couple times a week the reports and all the wins, and that's all very evidence in the sphere. We bring it up at the meeting so that everybody sees that it works. Where it starts to fall apart is if the belief among the team members is that, I'm just spinning my tires and following people in the ponds, but I don't really see any appointments. So they have to have a realistic path to success and income. And then it becomes much easier. It becomes much less top down, where people are in the pursuit of building a business rather than pleasing Mr. Peter, who told me to do these standards. That's just a gross feeling.
So what's more important when you're training your agents and they have a lack of consistency and they have a lack of skills? What do you, as their coach, their team leader, their sales manager, what do you focus on first?
If they have both a lack of consistency and lack of skills, I'm going to focus on consistency. I don't care if you have issues converting people out of no. I mean, we don't really have a rule about, you have to do X amount of transactions to stay on the team, because I believe 100% in the activity, so much so that we'll stand behind somebody that's in the activity daily, whether they can't put a deal together at the finish line. We'll go to every appointment with them to try and make that bloody thing work for them, because that's something we can train and help with. It's really tough and not even worthwhile in many cases to help with consistent activity. Either you kind of want it or you don't. We're going to put the best environment and resources and stuff in front of you, but I can't motivate you. And it's not really my job, nor is it what I want to do if it was my job title. I want to put the right environment in place so that people want to do that consistent work, but they have to believe in it. That's part of my job as well.
I love it. I couldn't agree more. I think that every experienced team leader I've talked to, consistency beats skill set. Skills come with consistency, right? And we want to train them for sure. but it's about being consistent. So in motivating or inspiring consistency, right? I need self-motivated agents, right? I can't really motivate you, but what I can do, you're talking about telling stories about success stories for agents. And this is what you get when you make when you make those 15 calls, this is where that ends up, and this is what that looks like. And you're going in the boardroom and you're effectively being an ISA, which you don't mind, and it's great. And I love that mindset. But in the end, leadership is hard, right? And you guys saw this with your parents. I know you saw how hard they worked while you guys were kids growing up in their home. And I know that you both taking on the mantle of leadership responsibility, that it's, man, this is a big job. And so why, in your opinion, why is it worth it? Why be a team leader? Did you consider the cost? Because I'm not sure that, I think a lot of people go into it blindly. I know when I started as a team leader, I saw all the good things. And I think probably if I had realized how hard it was going to be beforehand, I might not have gotten into it. But once I did, it was certainly worth it. So, but tell me from your perspective, why is it worth it to lead a team?
I can jump in on this first. So I think to lead the team, it is so inspiring when you see people achieve the goals and when you see them be more than what they could see in themselves. We work with people from all walks of life, and we've seen them really change their lives through real estate. And it's a really powerful thing to do that day in and day out with people. That makes all the long hours and frantic phone calls on a Saturday at 9 a.m. Worth it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And sometimes like you said, you certainly question, what the hell am I doing here? Then you get the odd person who, an agent said this the other day in one of our meetings, never really believed in themselves. And I always had this voice kind of telling them that they couldn't do it. And we worked with them to get the focus on the right things and start doing a little bit of business. And when somebody comes in your office and says, this is changing my life, I feel like a different person. My relationship's better at home, this, that, and the other thing. I'm the most stoic person I think you'll ever meet, but shit, like I'll start almost tearing up. And you're like, I guess I played I don't want to take credit for it, but we do work hard in order to have a result like that. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Because you could always just go into production and usually make a lot more money. But the whole reason why you're in production is because you like the people, and you just get to do that times 10 when you're the team lead.
I love it. I love it. The impact. I think that some of us take a long time to get there. I'm going to try to avoid saying this over and over, but you guys, and at your age, your wisdom is way beyond your years. You have studied hard. You've worked hard. What you understand about running a team is actually inspiring at your age. And yeah, that's it, right? It's about impact, because there's always going to be opportunities to make more money. Certainly money is like oxygen, right? We need it, but we only need so much of it to actually live and do what we need to do. And then it's just fun after that. And I'm a big fan of money, but that's not it. That's like not the reason why, right? And the impact that you're making. So tell me about you've talked about the impact you're making on your team. Tell me about what you're most proud of that your team is doing to make an impact in your community.
That's
That's nice.
That's your question.
In our community, we do a number of things, but the biggest thing that we do is we work with this organization called the Good Shepherd Center, which is for people experiencing homelessness. We've really worked with them over the last number of years to become a key sponsor, and it works in multiple facets. Like we help people find homes. We help people find coats in the winter. I'm not sure where you're from, John, but it gets very cold here in Ontario. And it's become a really big passion project of our team to work alongside them. And in our community, we're known as the team that does the coat drive. Like, we are the people drop off coats almost all year round when they're cleaning out their homes. The other thing, in addition to our charitable work, is the key thing that we focus on with our team is acting with integrity. So no matter what part of the transaction or where someone is in their real estate journey, one of our key tenets is to act with integrity. And, that's something that we talk about with our team every day. A real estate a real estate, as you've mentioned, there's a lot of money involved. And I think we owe it to anyone we work with to have that integrity focus when we're working with them in any facet.
That's so good. It should be, integrity should be the baseline for everybody, but unfortunately, money reveals character, and we find that all of a sudden people somehow have some different set of ethics and baseline of integrity when it comes to business or money. And to find leaders who don't, that actually makes you stand out in your community. So that's super great. Code Drive, that reminded me, I did that with a team of mine many years ago, and makes me want to do it again, because that really is the way that you can have a heavy impact on the community and have those benefits there too. So tell me about what does the future look like for the Wolcott team? Do you have a long-term vision, or is it just, hey, we got a goal for 2024 and we're going to go hit that, and then we'll think about vision again in 2025?
We have a 10-year plan.
I love it.
So I guess it's an 8-year plan now because we set it 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, we have an 8-year plan for 2032.
Awesome.
And all of the goals that we set every year are in view of that plan. So hopefully we keep hitting these goals. But I don't think we have a clear enough picture maybe of what the operation actually looks like in terms of people and administrators. And we know that we want to clear that up. We really want to turn this into the most systematic team around, so that we can pride ourselves in that. We're constantly adding stuff. I mean, we don't want to become some bloated corporation. That's not what I'm saying. We want it to be very clear for everybody that comes here what to do in every little circumstance, so that everybody feels comfortable and it's just easier, less friction. And we notice the more systems that we implement, the smoother everything goes, the happier everybody is.
Love it. Love it. Are you using any kind of outside resources to build those plans? Any operating system that you're using or anything like that? Or you just are just kind of drafting it from your own experience?
We're drafting it from our own experience. I mean, we have a coach that we work with, Sunit Agarwal.
Oh yeah, man, Sunit's awesome.
Yeah,
Sunit is the bomb.
Yeah,
love
we
him.
are big fans of Sunit. So he's a great person to help guide us through, and we're in the Cheplack space.
Yeah.
And that helps us design some of it. But a lot of it is from our learned experience, because not everything is applicable to every market. And we know where we want our business to scale and how we want that to look like in 8 years.
But yeah, we don't use any sort of a tool. Like, it's the management team in a room for a number of hours in an Excel spreadsheet, going deep with, you got to figure out what the reason why everybody wants to do this, because it's not easy work. So if it's just because, then that meeting's not going to be very exciting. So that's becoming a bigger and bigger component each year, and it is in the quarterly meetings with our agents. But yeah, it's just us putting our heads together, doing it the way that we've done it for years in Excel, building a budget, building a goal, and expanding for the future.
I love it. I love it. So tell me about, in the future, as we kind of begin to wrap it up here, tell me about how these recent events in the news, tell me about how they affect your long-term plan and what you're telling your agents, specifically about the NAR settlement and related lawsuits. Tell me about what is your take on that, and what you're telling your agents, and how you feel like that'll affect your business.
Luckily for us, it's a short answer.
Yeah, that's American.
Because it's all American. It does. You don't.
Sorry. There's the American lawsuit, obviously, but there is a similar Canadian lawsuit. I don't really pay attention to it. I'm so focused on not letting people get focused on it. It may change. The good thing about being partnered with the awesome guys at RE/MAX Escarpment is they're going to spoon feed us what the changes are. And in Canada, these things seem to happen pretty gradually. They seem extreme at first, and then they come out in graduated steps. So where I see agents go wrong all the time is freaking out about legislative changes and panicking about the right paperwork, this, that, or the other thing. We're going to help them not make mistakes. RE/MAX Escarpment is going to help us help them not make mistakes. In my opinion, the less that you the less that you focus on it, the better. Like it's so easy in this business to get distracted and do things that do not make you any sort of money or help you build your business. So my philosophy is just keep doing what you're doing until someone tells you to stop.
That makes a lot of sense. Tell me about AI and how that is the progression of AI. Tell me about, is that a factor in, are you using that as a tool to run and grow your business? Do you see using it more in the future? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we're using it a lot from a copy perspective and some processes, but it's not a huge piece. Again, I think there's a balance between using AI and relying on AI too much for your business. At the end of the day, we've heard about all these new technologies ruining real estate, whether it's AI or the internet or whatever. I think there's a really great balance for it. Are we going to use it to replace all of our interaction with our clients? Absolutely not, because we're still in the early stages of AI. We are about to start with work with a company to help automate some of our processes and behind leveraging AI, but that's like very early steps. But really, it's a huge thing for us to help with content right now.
I'm super excited to see what it does for home evaluations. I think that's going to be a game changer. We're using it for our live chat feature on our website. It's actually doing better than I ever would have thought. So it's taken that load off. But in terms of like building a business and getting your systems where you want them to be, it's so invaluable just for the fact that it can summarize a really, really long meeting and save having an administrator go in and type up notes and all that stuff. You record certain meetings, you put it into ChatGPT or Copilot, whichever one you're using, and you've got like a full Coles notes, and you can just add that right into your system manual. So there's no repetition, there's no forgetting, there's way less administrative work. Yeah, we're using it for our copy, but that's it. I don't think AI is going to change our business specifically. Now, are we missing out on something? I don't know, maybe, but whatever.
Well, I love that. I love your perspective on that. You're using it for what you know you can use it for. And team meeting summaries, like that's phenomenal. You can go back and just have it create a notes version of team meetings. Obviously, copy, add copy. That's kind of where we see everybody using it. But what I love the most about what you just said was we're not going to let the bright, shiny, flashy object distract us from what's most important. I really love that. And as we go into what is most important, we talk a lot about impact and legacy on this podcast. It's really the core basis of this podcast. I want to ask you about one of the challenges, especially growing up as kids of realtors and then real estate leaders now yourselves. Tell me about balancing or integrating your business with your family. What we say is what's valuable is your business with what's priceless, which is your relationships, especially with your family. How do you balance or integrate that?
That's an interesting question. I mean, because our families are integrated with our business.
Yeah.
I think as we've kind of talked about, one thing that we're very lucky is that we do get to have that family time during the day. Like during the workday. I really don't know anyone that has the same relationship with their parents that Peter and I do, and that we've gotten to be able to grow that as we've worked together, both with each other and with our parents. And our other siblings are also in and around the office often coming in, which is really great. And then like at family dinners, I mean, we do have to be very careful not to just talk about business the entire time because it can be a default topic very easily. But there's also siblings and partners that may not be interested in hearing about how the real estate business is working that day. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you're living intentionally both in the business and at the dinner table, right? And that's what a great way to do that. And of course, you're integrated in an integrated life with family and business. And it sounds like you guys have hit a really good harmony there by just being intentional. Okay, so a couple of quick last questions. What are you reading or listening to right now?
I'm listening to as many Chet Black podcasts, Reside podcasts, and I love Joshua Smith GSD Mode podcast as much as that as I can listen to.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love
Reside podcasts all day as well. Those have been a game changer.
And I'm sorry, Justine, did you say one specifically?
The Reside podcast.
Oh, Reside. Yeah, sure. Chet Black's guys. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, they do a great job there.
They provide a lot of value and they're not crazy long, which is great.
Yeah.
Joshua Smith is every morning. That guy's a nut.
He's a
psycho.
beast.
He's a monster.
That's
You get in your car at like 6 a.m., it's already out. It's amazing.
So one last question. What's the most important takeaway that you would give to team leaders? What do they need to know in this market from your perspective, from your experience? What's the most important thing that team leaders need to know in today's market?
In this market and in any market, our coach, not Sunit, but Chet Black dressed me down at the beginning of the year. And basically, he told a number of leaders and managers and all of that the same thing. Like, you need to have, just like the agents, 1 or 2, ideally 3 daily activities that you do. He calls them non-negotiable daily activities, no matter what. Mine are in the morning, it's 9 to 10 recruiting calls, talking to great agents in the marketplace, 10 to 11, those follow-up boss boardroom sessions, and then 11 to 12, inspecting the database. But that happens no matter what, meaning I'm not, meeting with an agent or going on a presentation or doing this, like my door's locked. I've actually got an on-air, like, broadcasting sign outside my door that goes on, and people know. I think that's the biggest thing that for us in terms of spurting growth and changing activity.
It's been a game changer. I started leveraging it a few weeks back, and it's changed productivity immensely. Mine is more marketing focused, but it's making sure that people in the office know that you are not available during that time because you are working on your core competencies. It also, when you're talking to your team about what things that they should be working on, you're modeling the behavior, not just telling them what to do.
Man, there's so much good stuff in that. Peter and Justine, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us on the podcast. You crushed it. Thanks for being on the show. Super grateful for your time investment. You're going to also crush your goals this year. It's very easy to see, and just grateful for you being here. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Total pleasure. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
And that's a wrap on another episode of the MegaTeam Mastermind. I hope you found some nuggets of wisdom that you can use to leverage your real estate team to make an impact and to build a legacy. A huge thank you to our incredible guest and, of course, to our sponsor, MegaTeamMentor.com, where you can get a free detailed assessment of your real estate team's health, including a free customized scorecard that will quickly and objectively diagnose the strengths and weaknesses of your real estate team business. That's MegaTeamMentor.com for your free real estate team health assessment. If you enjoyed the show, I would consider it a personal favor if you would subscribe or leave us a review so that we can get this podcast out to others who want to make an impact and leave a legacy. I hope you'll tune in to our next episode for more leadership insights, strategies, and stories of success and failure. Until then, this is John Tiller, and as always, I'd like to speak an ancient blessing on you as we go. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace.